Alright, so hey YouTube, welcome back to the kitchen. We might have to change the name of this channel because I don't do anything in the basement anymore. It's in shambles down there. It's in the process of going through we'll call it a metamorphosis. But anyway, finally, after months and months and months of waiting, iComp over in Germany had the Repro C64 wedge cases, the 64C cases again. So I'm not going to go too much into the case. I mean, it is what it is. It's an exact replica of the ones they made back in the 80s and early 90s, I guess, right? So it's this is obviously the translucent one. It's not completely transparent. It's a little smoky. It's very cool though. A while back, I ordered these badges separate. Somebody was selling them, I think, on the Facebook group or something, but he was just selling them for a couple of bucks. Yeah, I got that badge, a sticker to go on the bottom of it so it looks almost legit and all that. And this is just a run-of-the-mill LED. I ordered those off Amazon. These LEDs are only like, I think they're rated like 2.3 volt or something, so you got to use a drop-down resistor on that. We'll get into that in a little while. But at any rate, I finally have a proper new production case for my beloved little 60 clone board that we did a few videos on a while back. And noticed the board changed a little bit. I've done a couple of test fittings with it, and I got it to where everything goes in the case real nice. The one thing that was off more than anything was the audio jack back here. I just had to heat up the couple of pins on here and sink the board down a little bit lower to get it to line up in the back of the case, but it lines up perfect now. The other thing is with the Lumafix on here, it won't, and the heat sinks that were on the Vic, it won't clear the bottom of the keyboard. There's just not enough room in there for all that. So I pulled the heat sinks off and I put this little 30 mil fan in there instead, and that clears the case perfectly. And that's just on there with some double-sided heatsink tape. But at any rate, yeah, this thing is pretty slick. I'm loving this case. I added some LEDs around it to help it glow a little bit, and we'll play with that in a little while when we get it done. But the last thing we're going to do is, if you remember when I built the modulator and built this board and everything, I never wanted to do composite video. I wanted to keep the video as clean and pure as possible. So I found these little, see if that'll focus, get some light on it maybe. These are little S-video jacks that are meant to solder directly to a board. However, we're gonna solder a couple wires on there. We'll put some headers on that set of pins there because that's your video out. So that's your ground, chroma, luma, and composite on these 4 pins here. So we'll whack some headers on there. We'll put this, it fits, man, like a glove in the back of the case. We'll have to use some adhesive or something to hold it in there, but I mean, you couldn't ask for a better fit. And when it's in there, you can maneuver the board in and out under it fairly easy. It doesn't stand out too far. So we'll have a proper S-video jack on the back of this thing. I won't have to use the DIN port anymore, and I think that'll just be kind of awesome. So we'll pause here. I'm going to prep some soldering stuff, and we'll get this little connector ready to drop in this case and finally put this machine together, and it'll be 100% done. Well, you say that now, but it'll be done enough to where I'll actually put the screws in the case and put it away. All right, I hope the light doesn't suck too bad on this, or the sound for that matter. But anyway, here's our little S-video jack. So if you notice, there's 6 pins coming out of the back of it, and you know there's really only 4 that get used for S-video. So the 2 on top, the 2 pins closest to each other, that's going to be your chroma and luma. The 2 pins on the outside, that's just for mounting to a board, and they are bonded together. That's just, you know, ground, right? And then your 2 pins on the bottom would be your video ground for each of the signals. Now on the Commodore, all the grounds are bonded together anyway. There is no separate, you know, video ground, so to speak. It all comes back to the same place. So to save on wires, so we only need 3 connectors coming out of it, we're just going to bond all this ground stuff together here. So that's essentially going to jump each pin together by way of that chassis mount thing in there. So here we'll just heat these bad boys up. Put a little blob in there. And then these guys too, we'll heat them up again. Let's see if we go from the bottom. I swear I'm better at soldering, but I got a camera in my way. Makes this a little awkward. I might have had bourbon for dinner. But there, we got those all blobbed together. And then I've already got some tin on the wires. We'll tin the signal pins up top here. Make it a little easier to get those wires on there. Alright, so on this bottom little bridgey thing, we'll use the black wire on one side. And it's all bonded now, so it doesn't really matter. I don't want it too close to the top. Alright, that looks good. And these guys we'll go top side with. Top shelf these bad boys. There's 1 and 2. Oh, come on, buddy. Alright, I think, yeah, nothing's touching, nothing's shorted. Everything's on there good. When all's said and done, I'll fill this in with hot glue as like a strain relief kind of thing. But now we got ourselves a cutesy little S-Video pigtail-y kind of thing that we can put in the back of the case. And we'll use my favorite hot glue adhesive because it peels off easy if you goof up. But that'll get our S-Video out the back of this machine. All right, now for the board work. This hopefully will be pretty easy as long as I don't burn myself too bad. But we're just going to take some angled, DuPont square pin kind of header. We got 4 of them broke off here, and we got 4 pins here. Like I said earlier, I think if I remember correctly, it's composite on the end, chrome aluma in the middle, and ground over here. Kind of doesn't matter because we're using DuPont little pluggies, so we can move them around to make sure we got them in the right place. So we're just going to take these guys, sweat them into place over there, and then I think it'll be time to just kind of bolt all this stuff back together. So here, let's see if we can tin these guys without burning my finger. Or completely screwing these pins up. I'm going to do this off camera. This is next to impossible to do at the weird angle I'm working at. So we'll be back in a sec. Alright, we're back. We were able to get this stuff tinned up. I'm still getting to know this new Peinzel soldering iron or whatever it was called. I saw this on Adrian's channel, and I gotta say I like it, but I'm getting used to the temp control on it and all that. Compared to my other iron, I'm sure this one's a lot more accurate, but I dropped the heat way down so I could solder these pins without melting the plastic. So we got good balls of solder on there now. We can get this out of the way. And we can pause for a refreshing beverage from my unpaid sponsor, but tell you what, they get free props, man. This is some tasty bourbon. I think everybody should drink some of this. Angel's Envy is quite good. So anyway, we'll get our board here, and I defluxed this pretty good when I cleaned it up and put it together and all that. So we will put some fresh solder on here. And this is a total hack job. If I wanted to do this right, I'd pull this modulator off and just use longer pins that go all the way through. But first of all, I'm lazy and don't feel like pulling the whole damn thing off. And secondly, it's been on and off a couple of times already, and I'm afraid if I work it and rework it and rework it, I might do damage to the board. Yeah, especially if I've been drinking or something. But anyway, let's see if we can get at least one of these pins tacked down without burning myself. So we hold it. This is going to be a pain in the ass. I need pliers or something. Okay, let's use these cutters. We just won't squeeze too hard to hold that down. And if I can at least get... That's a pain in the ass too. Alright, we're just going to burn ourselves on this one. But at least if I can get one of these in place, I'll be able to go back, do them all, and rework them. But let's see. I can do this without melting my fingerprints off. I'll be damned, I got one of them kind of on there. Just got to come down a little. Still off a hair. I know I'm just being nitpicky now. But, you know what? It's level enough for what we're doing here. And might have hit the jackpot on that one. Yeah, they're crooked, but you know what? They are all connected. Yeah, the crooked adds to the character. So yeah, they're definitely solid. They're on there. They're not touching anything. All right. I think we can go plunk this guy in the case now. Alright, we got our board. We got our bottom half of the case. This guy's looking pretty good in there. So, what else did we do here? Alright, so we added, put 4 LEDs around here. And these were kits from Amazon. It came with a little resistor in line with it already and everything else. And they were designed to be hooked up to 12 volts. I didn't want to go blind from this thing, so I've got these hooked up to 5 volts. I got one coming right off the regulator, one's coming off the feed going into the Arduino. One of them I took off the 5 volt, that's on this modulator here, and the other one I peeled 5 volts off that cap back in there and just grounded them right there. So, no, there again, nothing fancy. I just kind of tacked stuff in place here and there. There again, there might have been alcohol involved for that. I'm like, yeah, I need some UV lights inside this thing. So these two up here are pretty well hidden from the keyboard, so you don't see any bleeding. These guys kind of bleed all over the place. Might do something different later, but I just put some black Sharpie on top of them to dull it down some. And now our little buddy here, probably could have cut those a little shorter, but he'll go in like that. And then, if I remember correctly, ground is that one on the end. And here we can cheat and look at another modulator that I built. So we can look at the pinouts, right? We're looking at that side. These are outs. So yeah, that's going to be composite out, Lumichroma, and grounds on the end. So here we can go ground on the end. I didn't think too much about those transistors being in the way, but that'll work. And then we'll just hook up the way they lay, and if they're wrong, we'll flip them around later. I don't feel like reading pinout diagrams and all that. We'll just plug them in and see what happens. So we can go like that, and our little jack in the back there. And yeah, that is going to be super cool, man. No composite, just S-video. That will make a very happy little Commodore, I think. So, all right, I'm going to heat up the hot glue gun. We're going to stick him in, and we'll give him a test run. All right, kids, let's give this thing a little workout here. With a little bit of hot glue, and I can go through and clean that up later, you know, the residue and whatever. We got ourselves a plug that's in there, and it's pretty solid. I mean, I'm pushing on it, and it's bending the plastic, and it ain't coming out, so I think we got a winner there. And we got ourselves a brand new S-video cable. We would have thought there were still brand new ones of these floating around, but that's, oh, it's gold and everything. It's the joys of working for a company that does a bunch of junk with televisions. And got an audio cable, you know, just your typical wide headphone kind of thing. He fits in there good. He fits in there good. And make sure we have this the right way before we bend pins. Let's give them some juice and see if we got our pinouts right the first time. See if we get lucky. Here. Slide him up. And of course not. So I'm thinking our chroma and luma are reversed. So here we'll just swap these two guys around. Oh yeah, there we go. There's our luma. Let's see, and some color. Well, look at that. No proprietary DIN cables or any of that junk. We just got an S-video port right on the back of him, which makes me very happy. And well, let's see, if we shut that off, you can see where I put those little glowy LEDs. When you put the case on, it kind of diffuses it some, looks all right. So all right, we'll go ahead and button him up, and I think we can finally call this machine done. All right, now to button this bad boy up. So this is a 64C case. So a lot of people are probably familiar with these. I really have a pile of bread bins. I only have one C model, but from icomp.de, they have all kinds of commie stuff there. I'm sure everybody knows who they are. Anyway, that's where this case came from. Somebody else was selling these, I guess, a while back. They stopped manufacturing and distributing and all that. The guys at icomp.de, I know they're real active on the boards and all that, but they started manufacturing. They just finally got U.S. shipping worked out here in the last couple of weeks, so we can get them over here on the side of the pond. So they also sell a keyboard mount kit that goes with it. It's two pieces. There's one, and here's the one that goes on the other side. So first things first, drop him in there, and they give you a little rubber grommet to kind of help hold things in place there. So he'll go in like that. And this is the moment of truth. Everything should slide right into place. So you got to kind of come over this way. See if you come in there and under the S-video. Yeah, like a glove, baby. I swear I measured or something. But then you can slide the board back over to the right to get it all lined up with the key or the joystick ports and all that goodness. And my only gripe with this, and it's it's a super minor gripe. I don't even want to bitch at all, but they didn't include any screws to actually hold the two halves of the case together or mount the motherboard to it. But I had a bunch of these fairly small coarse threaded screws that I salvaged out of a battery charger for like a Wiimote, or it was an Xbox stand battery charger thing that I didn't need anymore. So turned out these wound up being just the exact size you need for this sort of thing, and the right kind of thread and everything else. So it all worked out in the end. It just would have been nice if it came with screws, because I was afraid I was going to destroy this case. And in fact, I did goof up. I think it was that one there. I was using another screw I stole out of a Dell keyboard, and the head snapped off of it when I was cutting the threads in the first time. So that one mounting hole's a little wonky on here. I mean, it still works. I had to use a slightly bigger screw in that one hole, but being that you're using the 64C keyboard mount, you're putting another screw right there anyway. So it's not the end of the world if that corner of the board isn't super tight, as long as you got one there, right? So could have been a worse crisis, but we got through it. So I'm gonna get all the screws in this thing. You don't have to watch me do that. It's pretty silly, but we'll get it all screwed back down, and we'll do the final assembly and LED hookup and all that stuff. All right, we got our board all screwed in, and I gotta remember to hook those up before I do anything else. But we can do that later. So we'll tilt it up a little bit. So this little fan here, I'm confident he'll keep the Vic cool enough. I know the Vic gets pretty hot, but the rest of this machine runs really cool. We'll have some air coming across it. There's a little bit of gap between the Vic and the bottom of the keyboard when he sits on there. So I did run it for a couple hours like that, and I didn't have any problems at all. You do feel a tiny little bit of air coming out of these vents on the bottom, so I'm pulling air from the back, forcing it through here. It goes around the Vic, and then kind of, the keyboard makes a neat little wind tunnel for it, and it blows out. So it'd be nice if I could heat sink him, but with the Lumafix in there and everything else, there's just no way to fit it in there. But with a little bit of air going across, I'm not super concerned. I don't think it'll explode on me. If I really wanted to get fancy, I could pull the socket from this in the 8701 and put the Lumafix directly on the board, direct solder the 8701 to the board, and maybe get some really thin heat sinks in there, but I don't want to go through all that. I think it's going to be good enough. So, I mean, hell, how many of these machines ran without a heatsink on them at all? Just that stupid little heat shield and the stupid tabs they put on there, right? So I think it'll be just fine. So our friends that sold the case, they threw in a couple of these hex head screws and the Allen key, which I'm not a super fan of. I wish it was a Phillips head, but whatever. So we've got our power LED is going to get driven off the Arduino on this thing, or even if you're going to drive it off the original header from this board, make sure you got that wire hooked up first before you put the keyboard in, because you're not going to get to that later. So just like the original cases, this will just lay right in there. There's some screws in it, and it will be healthy. So this mount, being that it's screwed directly onto the board and into the case, it's solid, it's in place, and it ain't going anywhere. This one just sits on the grommet, so he'll wobble around a little bit. So if you need a little bit of wiggle room back and forth, you're going to get it out of the mount on this side of the case. But as you tighten everything down, I was a little afraid at first with this mount not being fixed to anything. It was going to be janky and wobbly and whatever, but it's been fine, so I'm not terribly worried. That's all screwed in. Looks like I got some bacon grease on the CIAs. That's what I get for working on my stove. But we'll plug in. You know what? We goofed there. The cable is stuck on the PLA. So I got that big honking PLA hanging out of the motherboard on this thing. There we go. crisis averted. We'll plug him in. There you go. And then the LED, right? Where's the other one? Alright, so I had to buy this gigantic bag of LEDs just to get the one I wanted, but that's the only way they were getting sold on Amazon. But these are, what, like your 2.5 mil or whatever they are, LEDs, and they fit perfectly into the case. Super cheap on Amazon. Obviously, I have a ton of extras. If you want some, let me know. I'll throw them in an envelope and put a stamp on it and send it to you. But in order to make it to where I could take the case on and off, I didn't want it always dangling there. I took the lines coming right out of the Arduino. I split it in the middle, and because the Arduino is going to output 5 volts, these LEDs are rated for like 2.2 at, I don't know, 20 milliamp or 10 milliamp or something. So inside this little chunk O heat shrink here, it's a 560 or 580 ohm resistor, just to drop the voltage down, and so the LED won't blow up and it won't be too super blindy. And this is the the mini DuPont, if you want to call it that, the 2 millimeter as opposed to the 2.54 pitch, and that fit damn near perfectly onto the legs coming right out of the diode. So I was able to just cut them down and plug it in, and it actually locks in there good. These diodes, they as most of them do anyway, but let's see if we can show it on camera. The legs flare out, and this camera half sucks, but you can kind of see that. There we go. The legs flare out, and they're a little beefier up here. So I trimmed it back to there, just to have the 2 little nubs hanging out of there like that. And it bites on these DuPont headers quite well, actually. Better than DuPont headers go right onto the pins anyway. So I'm real happy with how that worked out. That goes on there pretty good. I can unplug it and plug it back in easy enough. And it's driven off the Arduino, so it talks to us when we change ROMs and send resets and all that other happy crappy. And then finally we'll plug our S-Video header back in. Oh, we plug it into the right pins. There we go. So yeah, that's that, man. We're gonna button this guy up and call it a wrap. So this case, I think it's like the C's. It's got little, I think it's the original molds, they said, right? So it must be identical to the C's, but there's the little clips in the back that you line up. They kind of hinge a little bit, and they kind of pop in. You lay it down. There's a couple little clips here, and then flip it over, 3 screws in the bottom, and it's done. So we're going to call this a wrap. Here's my little buddy in all his glory. So, yeah, this was all new old stock chips I had laying around for the customs. Everything else was purchased brand new. The keyboard was supposedly a takeoff from the 64GS or whatever. I found it on eBay. I think it was just an early 64C keyboard, but at least it's the one I like, with the Petsky on the front. But so granted, this was pulled off a machine at some point, but everything else in here was new old stock or brand new parts. So it's kind of neat we're able to add one to the herd without really having to butcher anything. Although I don't really know where that came from. But anyway, cheers, mates, and we'll call this done. And thanks for watching another one of my silly 60 clone videos. Alright, well, I lied. It's not over yet. One more quickie little clip here, but we're in a dark room with a crappy camera, so I don't know how well this is going to work, but let's fire them up. So, yeah, it comes out really bright on camera, but, you see our little LEDs kind of illuminating up and down the sides, and then the 2 in the back, and looks very blue on camera. It's more purple in person. These are supposed to be UV bulbs or something. But at any rate, yeah, that's one glowing little 64 with an ultimate cart hanging out of the back. So I'm pretty happy with how this project came out in the end. Pretty nifty little machine, and definitely be a conversational piece. So anyway, see you for real this time. Have a good one.